This homeless man accidentally picked up an iPhone on the side of the road. Soon he received a call, and it seemed it came from the lover of the owner of this phone. However, on the other end of the line was a man's ferocious voice, followed immediately by a girl's cry for help. It turns out that the girl on the other end of the line is being kidnapped, and the kidnapper threatens that if Mark doesn't bring money to the meeting point in 30 minutes, he will never see his wife again. Even though Nick explained that he was not the owner of this phone, the kidnapper hung up immediately without answering. While Nick was confused and didn't know how to handle this problem, he suddenly saw a police officer on the side of the road. The man rushed over to report the situation. However, the police officer did not believe in such a myth, even claiming that Nick had stolen this phone, and asked the homeless person to go to the station to report the incident. Nick knew that any explanation would be useless, so he quickly grabbed the phone and ran away. Soon after, Nick received a text message from the kidnapper. The content of the message clearly stated the location of the safe inside a large house and the code on it. Initially, Nick intended to search for the homeowner, but thinking that Mary was being threatened by the kidnapper forced him to be more urgent. However, just as Nick opened the safe and was about to take the money, he was suddenly threatened by a man who put a gun to his head. It is none other than the owner of this house and also Mary's husband. Nick tried to explain that he was not a thief and that Mark's wife was being kidnapped for blackmail. Of course, Mark won't believe it because all the evidence is against the homeless. Nick doesn't have much time to think because he only has 30 minutes to rescue Mary. Taking advantage of Mark's distraction, Nick quickly grabbed a statue and knocked the homeowner unconscious. After that, he rushed to the location that the kidnapper had arranged to rescue Mary. But things are not simple because it turns out there was no kidnapping here at all. It was all Mary's plan, and the kidnapper was her accomplice. The two set up this fake kidnapping to steal a huge amount of money from Mark, but they didn't expect that Mark had dropped the phone and this homeless person had caused the entire plan to disturbance. Even so, their goal was eventually achieved. Furthermore, when the police investigated, Nick was the thief because his fingerprints were still printed on the safe. However, just as they tied Nick up and were about to leave, the police and Mark suddenly appeared. Mary saw that the situation had changed in an unfavorable direction and was extremely cunning when she pretended that she was the victim of this kidnapping. But when Mark saw the homeless man tied up and the bag of money was in Mary's hands again, he understood everything. Mark knew that he had been betrayed by this wife. He asked the police to arrest Mary and her accomplices immediately. As for himself, Nick was exonerated. The police officer quickly apologized and said that he was too prejudiced when judging a person based on their appearance alone. Meanwhile, Mark continuously thanked Nick because, through this incident, he was able to expose the true face of his treacherous wife for so long. And to give thanks, Mark gave the homeless man a good job at his company.